Hey, hey, hey! How's everybody doing tonight?
Pretty solid.
Doing awesome.
Always good, always good. Everybody ready to get into what is going to be one of the biggest lore-wise important sessions that we can do?
Yes.
Superb, superb. When the party last left off, they had just been given a decently nice meal and very adequate lodgings for spending the night in Sanctuary, Andromache's personal plane, also often called Tepos Eru. Mr. Dyer has been trying to convince the party, at least slightly, that it's not so bad here. There's a few things that are questionable, but ultimately, Andromache is not a malicious person. That has given them at least enough of a foot in the door amount of trust for them to have a conversation with him. And now the party has had the night, and we can play through a little bit of the night if you would like to talk amongst yourselves and bring up some concerns you have with what your approach is going to be. But supposedly, at some point soon, you will have to talk to them, and convince them that you should be allowed to leave. And with that, the party is currently resting in L Corner.
I love the corner.
There's something that's been bugging me ever since they left.
Hmm?
They said they've been waking Hector up every so often, yes?
Seems so.
Darius, what did Cassandra say the nature of the plane she is in is?
JC, what did Cassandra say the nature of her plane was?
Would you like the one that I tell? Would you mind making a history just so that I decide if you're doing it from yours versus hers?
Sure.
Oh, we've already got more rolls than last session. Woohoo!
So
Alright,
true, 3.
alright, we'll go from yours. We'll go from yours. He said something along the lines of, like it's of his flesh or something like that. It's of him.
I remember it was made, of his flesh or whatever. What are you getting at?
As I recall, she explicitly said that the plane was his body. Now, I can't claim to speak for Andromache, but their claim of waking Hector up seems rather dubious if... I don't know. You didn't notice any contradictions with what she said the nature of the plane was when you inherited her memory, no?
No, I don't think so.
So, how exactly can he be waking Hector up when Hector is the plane that Cassandra is residing in?
Well, his body is the plane. That's a very important distinction, I feel like.
Maybe an even more damning distinction.
I mean, when I die, I'm going to be a quote-unquote awake god without my body, right?
I don't know exactly how your domain is going to work. I mean, Nidhogg had a body.
Only
And
after
was-
we explicitly summoned one. We went through great troubles for there to be a body to kill. Turnrock had to expend some of his greatest magics.
Right, but existing in one's own divine realm does not necessitate being bodiless.
Maybe, but the more we talk about it, the more her memory is leaking into me. It's not that It's not that it's his body, but of his body. In the same way the flesh monsters are created of his blood, the potions that she gives us are created of his blood. They are not him. It's like if we concocted a poison out of the poison that can draw from my fangs. It's not that it is my body, but that it is of my body.
I still find the entire thing suspicious. This entire thing is wrong somehow.
I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm too trusting. But there doesn't seem to be contradictions. He's not lying when he said he hasn't lied to us, I feel. I'm not sure if he's capable of lying. Besides, he's invited us to see when he awakens.
The way I see it, at least, there is a reason why spells like Zone of Truth are not permitted in court settings under my clan's law. Being unable to speak anything but what you understand to be the truth leads to bending the rules such that you can change what you understand to be the truth. It forces you to get creative. It doesn't force you to be entirely honest.
Perhaps. But again, this, as of now, seems like conjecture both ways.
It is, but I haven't trusted that damn machine since they dropped us off on that island.
Man, I can't believe that one's still in your memory. The island we tried to get you to relax on.
I still think that was his toughest trial yet.
It was our toughest trial for sure.
Regardless, Andromache has proven very adept thus far at limiting the scope of what we're allowed to know to paint the picture they want to paint.
Perhaps.
Don't read too much into what they do say. What they don't say is more important, I believe.
Perhaps. As of now, what I'm focused on is protecting Cassandra. And more importantly, her child.
Nothing we can do about it until morning, then.
Whenever that comes. Alright, I think we got 40 out of 40 supplies.
Actually, no, we got 130 out of 40.
Ah,
Sorry.
very wise, very wise. Is there anything else anyone in the party would like to do before their everything about their character is set for the day?
No. At least I don't have anything.
I got all my shit.
Can everybody double check, make sure their character sheet isn't refreshed, repaged, reformatted? Read.
Oh yeah, speaking of,
See, shit
Oh.
like that.
True.
So 25 THP for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Awesome.
So cool.
I have just cast 6 level 8 on the entire party.
Do THP naturally expire at the end of a long rest?
They expire when you take your next long rest, as I believe, and as I recall, unless there is a duration otherwise stated.
So technically, does that mean that by rise it's supposed to be allowed to float if you spend doing that during a long rest? Or is
No
taking...
clue, but worst case scenario, I take 10 minutes after the long rest ticks completion.
Well, yeah, the main thing is that if you do it again before you get another rest, that's the main thing that we need to figure out,
Well,
right?
Oh,
Because, like, if you do 25 now, and then there's a fight, and then you have 10 minutes and you do the same thing, right? That would make a very substantial difference, right?
it would. Unsure.
Either way, we can potentially figure that out, if
Mhm.
that's important here.
Yeah, it probably won't be important here. Worst case scenario, we figure it out for campaign 2.
The party begins to awaken after some amount of time. A entirely new batch of foods has been displayed and proudly set forth on the table. Many of them are much more amenable to your tastes than that of the previous night. There's a small sign, probably only about 4 inches by 8, set on a triangular platform on top of the table, with instructions on simply calling out for him once you are ready for negotiations. Them.
Lork's just going to grab some food from his own pack, eat that, and start donning his armor.
And the rest of the 5 people are simply laying in bed.
So true.
Real.
Darius is doing similar. He is eating some of the food that they have displayed, but also donning.
Yeah, it's usually get ready and stuff and be like, alright, is there anything we need to go over? Or we have a heading?
Just be careful not to trust too blindly what they do say.
Indeed. But I think at this point we're past information and we're at negotiations, so.
Let's hope so.
What is Zeus's view?
Zeus just kind of nods in response. He's like, yeah, I'll follow the team. Assuming nothing crazy happens.
So, you call over Andy? Or does the party have something else they want to talk about?
I was just trying to make sure everybody said what they were doing, just so we're not like A, missing somebody, or B, somebody is thinking about something.
What about Hoff? Does Hoff have any additional odds?
No.
Miftis Clean?
Yeah.
Weep.
Alright then. I suppose we call for an Andy. Andy the Mandy.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Andy the Dandy.
Andy the Dandy.
I hate it.
They make their way through after a good
We
few
have
minutes and give a gentle bow. I trust your breakfast was satisfactory.
Enough, yes.
It can be adjusted to be more fitting in time, but for now, I believe you have a task you would like to perform, and I have restrictions for them. Would you like
Alright.
seats for this?
He looks over to Lorik. Is Lorik still intending to stand the entire way through?
Lork is going to stand.
Well, I'm gonna follow this one, and I suppose we're standing.
I will take a seat this time.
Old man.
The material that had previously been thought to be some sort of stone begins to shift in form underneath your feet, creating a rather comfortable chair as it morphs into such a form. It is not ornate, but it is well suited and well crafted into a very ergonomic shape, which is very comfortable to rest upon. Looking at Zeus and Rifter and assuming they don't get a response, they move and form the same action for themselves before sitting down and facing the party. If at any time there are any other requests, please feel free to ask.
Alright.
You are here at my hospitality, so please use it.
You said there were restrictions.
There are.
You, I assume, know what it is that I want to do.
I know some of it, and I know that things may have changed. It would be best for us to be the most clear and not make assumptions in important moments.
Alright then. I want to make my way to Cassandra's realm, and be it through force or through convincing, although I assume she will not be in a state to be convinced, bring both her and her child here for you to aid. Is that clear enough for you?
It is. What are some of your other conditions? Are there any other tasks or requirements before I lay out mine?
Well, ideally we want to continue with the party member you took from us. And we want to have the opportunity to resolve the issues on the plane you took us from. But those are more of on-release type terms than an activity we necessarily are focused on now.
And in that same vein, the return of the guardian spirit that was sacrificed to the chains that you sent after us.
Consider the last already done. As for the second, it seems that it might be, much to your point, be able to be negotiated at a future time. The first I can grant, but I regret to inform that you will likely be disappointed with its result. As a consequence of Dyer's stay here, he has become adjusted to this realm's time stream. If he is to return after such a long period of time, he will likely be inept should the party get into danger, and it would be of great peril for him. I believe, as much as you may distrust me, unwise for him to join you.
At that, Lork's hand is hovering around his sword, but he hasn't made a move yet.
So what you're saying is that at this point, because you've taken him, he no longer can be returned. Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying that if he were, it would take a similar amount of time for him to adjust back to that life as he has been here.
All right then. So then we won't likely take him to Cassandra, as he kind of has his hand like next to Lorik on his arm. But should we further discuss terms in the future for release, he will be on the table to join us.
In such capacity, yes.
He looks over at Lorik. Is that good for you?
For the time being.
All right. So then, what are your conditions to the primary terms? The current action.
There are two primary conditions for your primary goal. The first primarily applies to yourself, Darius, but to a lesser extent the rest. I would require you to create a formal oath, and one that prevents you from being able to speak of anything you have learned here to anyone outside each of you in any capacity. Not simply speech, communication, sending through dreams, passing on through spirit. Any other such form to anyone or anything outside it, to make it impossible for it to be communicated, not just by will, but to simply not exist should someone else attempt to look.
I will tentatively agree to this first condition, with one minor exception, that being in order to potentially convince Cassandra post her assistance after she is in capacity to be convinced.
Then to make it such that it cannot be communicated to those who do not know of it.
This is acceptable to me. The rest of you?
I have a question. How
Feel
come
free.
this wasn't originally part of the plan when we first met you?
That does seem like rather the oversight, yes.
At the time, you had little. The amounts I had made of simply not discussing him was sufficient. Now the knowledge you have grown is more significant, and simply erasing the problem would no longer be enough to solve it.
More significant or not, a lot of people could have avoided ending up here had that been established previously.
You were rather persistent about maintaining your autonomy in the matter at the time.
Perhaps, but still, it was a reach of our original contract, potentially arguably involved in it, but not to the letter described. To that end, I would like you to consider, depending on how much each of them have learned, some of those that, as the consequence to our misunderstanding of the terms, be it intentionally or unintentionally, be also released to their home planes.
That would be exceptionally unlikely to occur.
Might I ask why?
Do you believe it would be right to strip elements of someone's identity to allow them to be free to do so without such protections as I might have placed upon you? And beyond that, many of them will likely suffer far, far greater effects of withdrawal than dire. some of the oldest have been here for over a year of your time. The amount of their body would practically be in stasis for months at a time without diligent caretakers to assure that their body not begin to decay and wither. They would certainly die quickly, let alone be sustained or... And beyond that, if they were to have a caretaker, one which was not simply an automaton, that would simply lead to questions, probing investigations. Dyer would at least have the chance to be able to move, however slowly, a few minutes each day to consume meal. Others, they would not be so well adapted.
Perhaps not. I might have a solution for at least one of them. There's one that I care about in particular. It's the one of divine heritage.
Hmm.
They have been here rather long, but that is a responsibility that I'm willing to take. Perhaps not now, but once I've had more infrastructure set up in my own realm, I might be able to give him the care he needs, considering the time in my realm flows much more similarly to that of the mundane planes.
Should they be completely agreed to it, and be willing to take upon them the same oath as you will,
Of course.
then we can attempt to test potential rehabilitation.
I would like to hear your other conditions before I agree or disagree to this first one.
Does anyone else have questions on the first?
Not I.
I guess just as you say, not saying anything to those who already know, with, giving this exception to Cassandra, but she is on the same page, same amount of knowledge. There's nothing that she doesn't know that we know.
The essence of this pact will, as per Darius's statement, one that perhaps I should have done prior, one that is much more direct. It is not simply that you should not, it is that you cannot.
Yes, sorry for the
If you
incorrect phrasing.
attempt to speak to someone, and you can, then they do. If you attempt to speak to someone and they do not know, then you cannot. If you speak in the presence of multiple, if someone peers upon you and you attempt to speak to each other, you will hear exactly what is correct and they will not. Change your very act of being observed to be in compliance with it.
And I assume that the enforcing actor behind these phenomena will be you directly, or at least one of your fragments.
A direct, continual spell upon you. Yes. Maintained by myself.
So a sort of permanent abjuration for the flow of information.
That would be an acceptable description.
And this is not to assume or lead in any particular direction, should that abjuration lose strength, what is your plan? How does that affect the contract?
If such an unlikely event were to occur, I would simply intend to refresh it.
Perhaps, but I more so mean in the event that I'm sure you're aware that things happen, that even with your best efforts, things will go wrong, can go wrong.
Of course. The party should... Sorry. Your group should still exercise diligence where possible, for in most circumstances, should a mistake be made, similar erasure procedures as per the past will be sufficient. It is primarily for more important problems, such as the likely candidates of Cassandra's current harm or yourself in your apotheosis.
Indeed. So then, I was asking specifically because the way we had it worded previously would mean that should we be able to, regardless of our terms of contract, if we are able, we are able. But with this realignment, it would mean that if we are able, but it violates the contract, we still cannot. Weird diction thing that I wanted to make sure.
Would you mind saying that out of character one more time?
Yeah,
Just
so
'cause, like,
basically the way it was worded right there, the way we were talking about it was, if you are able to talk to somebody, then it is allowed in the contract because that is the abjuration, which means that if the abjuration fell and we were able to talk to, it would be within the bounds of the contract to continue.
and the
Because we are
answer
able to talk to them.
And the answer is yes, it's still within your part. You wouldn't be in breach of it, but if something does go wrong,
They would, yeah. They would still have
he
the
still has the
information, yeah.
right to be able to go and do cleanup protocol for it.
Okay.
So it's still up to the party to exercise proper diligence.
He was more so trying to verify who the burden would be on at that point. So it would be on the person who spoke, or who heard, and Andromache then, and not us.
Correct. He would not get pissy at you if you went to Jimmy John or if Jimmy John was listening in on you while you were talking and somehow there was a blip in the connection between planes and whatever reason caused a EMP
Basically,
of magic for
I
2
want to
minutes.
avoid a dire situation, so I want to verify that this explicitly avoids a dire situation.
Well, here's the thing. Again, it's as long as you have your diligence. If you are explicitly like, hey, I'm going to keep every day, I'm going to put out a post on my twitter.com trying to say, hey, Andromache's a bitch ass motherfucker. And one of those days it happens.
It blips through.
That is still unacceptable.
Yeah.
Because
but like I said, avoiding a dire situation because Dire wasn't intentionally doing anything.
he knew he could have just said no.
Isn't he under zone of truth?
No.
No, he was under compulsory magic to answer because he lost, though.
It wasn't it wasn't compulsory.
It explicitly was because
it explicitly
was
say
because
it.
you tried to stop saying it, and you said you can't stop saying it because of the of the magic.
What it was that if he continued to do things that weren't that, it would continue to say that was incorrect. It was zone of truth, not zone of you must say this.
Yeah, but it would be kind of rude to
Yes,
not
that
answer.
was the point. That was the main point. It was really fucking rude if he didn't.
I'm pretty sure.
And I'm pretty sure he also explicitly tried to be like, I can't tell you. And the guy was like, no, do it.
He's like, oh, yeah. The guy was foolhardy.
Yeah.
Not the spell's fault. He's a fucking dumbass. Damn, Hawkeye got moved to gay.
So true. But anyways, continuing on. Nobody else has any other questions for one, I assume.
Nope.
That would be
Then
correct, Darius.
All right. Then I assume we are ready to move on to your second condition.
He looks to Zeus. He looks to Rifter. He looks to Struenhof.
I'm fine to continue listening.
Yeah, keep it going.
Continue.
Give me just 1 second. I need to find the spot on this because I did not put them next to each other, which is a bit stinky. Second is less of a condition and more of an understanding of the situation. I do not seek to... I do not do this for my own glory or for vanity, but out of an understanding of the purpose of this task and others. I hope that out of faith in you and this task, the reason why I accept it in the current form. I do this because I believe it is a way to further protect Hector through however unorthodox means these may be. I would hope you understand that, yeah, very true, that in the future, such similar expeditions will likely be done for similar causes. Not unlike those which you may have found yourself on in our Hectorum.
That brings up a very good question. If Hector's existence was supposed to be secret, why was the town, why was the elevator that presumably you made labeled for Hector?
He begins to have a scowl on his face.
Ooh, he got your ass.
That is a good question. If the intent is for his presence to remain hidden, then why is there a tongue there? A mysterious power bringing you to places, giving you riches and danger, having a dedication to something will lead to people looking into it. I'm almost certain it's
He
part of
puts
what
up
led
his
our
hand for
trip
just
to
a moment, holds up his finger, and you see for about like an eighth of a second, his eyes go from being very bright cyan to only being like slightly more faded, and then it is returned to normal. As much as I attempt to be on my path towards being the best that I can be, I'm not infallible. I have been deceived, and the problem has been corrected. Thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Deceived by who?
You're aware how at times Cassandra would often abduct those who were not under my protection when attempting to perform my tasks?
Yeah, so I still don't necessarily understand the nature of those tasks.
We might answer that in a moment. She, as his consort, shares some few of his powers, and as a result, some of those which allow me to interfere with the rest of the world are ones in which she has some degree of leverage on. As a result, unless I take specific action to protect those within it, she could have reign to change or adapt the same situation as needed. Is by that matter that it seems that she has performed vandalism upon it. Which I have corrected.
I mean, he looks over to Lork. Should we tell him?
Lork's going to remain silent.
Out of character, what are you guys talking about? Just the fact that it's called
The name of
Hectorum?
the name of the
Yeah.
town.
Mm-hmm. which is technically different. Like you know, he gets fucking captcha locked by it because it's not correct, because it's not in any language. It doesn't actually mean anything that's related to him, right? You know, when people say Hector and that, they don't mean Hector, they mean the town, so it fails the captcha lock.
No, true.
Andromache being completely cucked by the fact that he's a machine.
I hope that this revelation of information can be shown as a sign of good faith to lightening our future contracts with you. But as a result of that vandalism, and he's kind of looking over to see if there's any signs from the party members to stop.
No reaction. Just
No reaction.
The
Finger
town,
guns.
the town in which the elevator is located is named Hectorum now.
Has been for a year and a half, roughly. Actually, no, 2 years now. By our plane's reckoning. This is how we get the Andromache ending, guys. We're gonna just we're just gonna short circuit him.
I mean,
So true.
I mean, he is actually, like, most of the time, if in previous statements he was thinking for a period of time, sorry, they were thinking for a period of time, it was really just me thinking, and they kind of, you know, did it after about half a second. This time they're actually taking a moment, and then
Fucking wheel pops up.
thank you for bringing it to my attention. It has been corrected as well.
What does that mean?
What?
Would you like to check your notes?
Lord flipped open his journal.
As you
Yeah,
go through,
hysteria.
every instance that you've written in our Hectorum is like called the Perun Bridge now.
So not even restoring its original name.
I have left your memories intact as a similar gesture.
Alright. This is an unwieldy name for a town. I'm assuming this is going to change eventually. The Bridge of Perun.
I have not
Perun's
simply
Bridge, Perun's
altered
Gate.
memory, I have altered what it once was. I'm sure people have come up with nicknames by now.
I think Perun's Gate sounds the best.
Hey, fuck off.
How many Pruden's Gates have there been?
Cease. I'm gonna fucking kill myself.
I don't get it.
It's okay. You don't have to.
Who's Balder?
Ah, I see.
We are.
I mean, I did say Prune's Bridge, didn't I, the first time?
You did.
Yes.
You did.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just making
Yes.
It's a
Malding's
gateway
Gate.
for an empire.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
God damn it.
And now people seem to have forgotten something about it. Anyway.
I hate it here. I hate it here so much. God damn it. Anyway.
Likewise, Darius. Thank you for your patience. You are a model for your kind, and I look forward to seeing them blossom under your leadership.
I'm hoping I can change what Seth and Nidhogg have done. But all the way up until Nidhogg's end, they were still desperately clinging and trying to step on each other, even in their cooperation, to maybe take that power for themselves. And it led to basically all of their deaths.
You are very wise, not only for your kind, but for many of those with souls. I have no doubt that you will be able to do so. Now, a simple recap. You seek to be able to head out and recover her and her son with the promise of future acclamation of select individuals to beyond Paradiso. I seek for more control over the dispersion of information from any of you in any capacity, and for the understanding that many of the tasks for which you will be released are ones which will continue to aid in the cause. Are we in agreement? Not in solidifying these as terms, but simply as an understanding.
These are the terms that have been discussed so far.
Indeed. And if it makes you feel any better, as a god, me hiding all of this information does end up becoming one of my weaknesses as well, so.
Now, this should go without saying, but I will not leave it unsaid so that it cannot be forgotten. But upon completion of this task with Cassandra, we will be negotiating for our release ourselves back onto our material plane.
For such purposes that aid our goals.
And we lightly discussed it earlier, but the next time in our material plane, or no, excuse me, the next time that you wake Hector, I would much appreciate you bringing me so that I might meet him myself. More than I already have. In exchange, I might share the information with you on how his dreams cycle and how it might be an insight into what he desires.
I hope that I might validate my current beliefs. It will be good to have first-hand account.
Alright then. Because I think at its core, at least from what you're telling me, if you're to be trusted, we both want to help Hector. Everyone involved in this cursed conflict wants to help Hector. And I think this is the best way to do it. At least through my power.
Then my only... Oh, go ahead.
My first duty is still to the Viamnary, but where I can, I will aid if that is the course that we choose as a party.
You'll have your entire mortal life to do so, and perhaps even, depending on whether or not you take that flame even further.
On that topic, Darius, Sternhoff, do we raise the other question?
Out of character. Darius would absolutely know what you're talking about. Out of character, what are you saying?
Carcass.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was Calcus.
If you... No, not that person. The carcass of Cassandra's realm.
Oh.
But yeah, you are correct. The guy's name is Calcus.
That's true.
I
Lorik has a concern he'd like to bring with you with something that doesn't add up.
Go ahead.
When we had visited Cassandra's realm previously, she had informed us that the realm was formed from Hector's body.
That is correct.
You claim to have awoken Hector on several occasions over the uncountable years.
That is correct.
And Darius, having inherited Cassandra's memory, finds no contradiction with her account of the realm as being formed from Hector's body. These two pieces of information seem contradictory, and if possible, I would like to hear how they are not contradictory.
Very well. His body remains here to be protected, and as much as I do so, through countless forces, or perhaps my own naivete, occasionally I do make mistakes. I have times where I will be deceived. I will have times where I may be temporarily overwhelmed. In circumstances such as this, despite Hector's great, finite nature, there's still much of him to be. There have been a few times in my history when he has had elements of him forcibly seized. The most recent and one of the most significant.
The claw.
Indeed. Sultan was one not unlike yourselves, who made similar negotiations, and in doing so struck betrayal at the first possibility.
So then I assume discussing Sultan's release is fully off of the table.
It is.
He looks over to Sternhoff. Is visitation potential?
Out of character, I thought he was dead.
Yeah.
Like long, like.
Mhm.
I mean, that's how I had ran it by JC, but
That is correct. It might have been because you were very, uninvested that specific session, but he got yoinked in the same way that Daya got yoinked.
oh, okay.
So he's probably somewhere out in, Paradiso.
Paradiso.
You mean to say he's alive in here?
I do. And I could
Thought he
be,
had died.
I could be amenable to limited visitation. It would be not unlike my own. I believe that there is very little benefit that any of you would gain from entering the rest of the area before your eventual acceptance to joining once you have tired of your wastefulness, but until such point, it would be not unlike Dyer, where he was to head out here only with more restrictions placed upon him.
Wastefulness.
Perhaps the unright word. Once you have... And he actually does hold that one for about a minute. You can start to piece together that these social interactions are far more difficult for him than simply determining solutions.
I understand, and he sort of breaks into his thought that you believe your plane to be the best option in all circumstances. And perhaps logically it might be. Giving you even that it might be, that doesn't necessarily mean that anyone will choose it.
I understand.
The best option is not necessarily the best option.
But I believe it is most likely that eventually you will come to believe that as well.
Perhaps I might, but at least individually, I have much time that I have to engage in the grand politic of the weave to undo much of the legacy of my people and those that altered them.
One which the conditions will remain not dissimilar to now. I wish for you to be able to have access to such things, but simply with the breakage of the smallest bit of your soul to communicate out to them, to be unable to speak of it to them. Beyond that, as free, you would be as free to communicate as you would be should you step outside this gate.
I understand what you're getting at, but in this game of politic, that limitation will be seen as a weakness for my influence. You have existed for far longer than I can imagine, and you have done, at least from what I can tell, quite a good job. Whether or not we agree or disagree with whether or not you should, we cannot discount the effectiveness with which you have carried out your intent. But as you've said, social situations for you are more difficult, and the divine politic is far more difficult than any of these social situations we ever place in front of ourselves, both as mortals and sometimes as immortals.
That it is. And I offer you consolation in that you are not the only one.
Perhaps not, but I might one day decide to join you here. But as of now, well, first off, I've promised my time to Calcus, so. Second, I think, at least personally, for now, I think that I need all of my force behind this if I'm going to make a dent.
The possibility that you could inform trillions of souls of it is not an acceptable circumstance.
I would have expected that our contract would have held enough.
As you continue to age, Darius, you will be not less and less like the you of the past, but more like it. You will... The more fundamental your action, the more core it will be to your being, and the more effort it will take for you to hold true to it, and the more influence it would take upon your soul to make such a deal. It may be acceptable here and perhaps on this mission, but on others, on futures, as you grow stronger and stronger, what works on mortals would not work on you. And similarly, what I need to do then would be catastrophic were it done now.
And so you wish to stunt my growth and ability to change?
No. I simply wish for you to allow me to adapt to you as you grow.
This conversation is unrelated to the recent things for now, but I would like to continue to have it. I'm sure there is a solution that can get us both what we want, be it some restriction I fundamentally place upon myself or otherwise. At the end of the day, I hope to gain enough faith from both you and Cassandra to be a sort of mediator.
If possible, but I believe that you are overconfident of your path. Just because you are heading towards your apotheosis does not mean that your flaws will fall away. Your temptations of your suicide, your irrational desires from time to time to flee from those who could help you, your detached nature, all of those will follow you into your divinity. Hector was no different. The hundreds of other gods were no different. It is something to be accounted for, and no greater a problem than any other problem.
Perhaps. But I hope to change in my mortal life that I still hold on enough to at least give you an idea. I'm not saying that I won't have flaws as a god. That's not possible. Nothing is flawless. But we've come this far. We've always found a way. Perhaps it's been through, as you've said, killing every wolf that enters, adding a pelt to the pile. But I think that if you do give us a chance, we might be able to help you more than we might harm you. Even now, it's even with my tongue, it's hard for me to discuss a theoretical of a theoretical, to
Indeed.
convince that I might convince you. But as we approach closer and closer to whatever situation it is you fear, or whatever situation it is I fear, we can re-examine and reevaluate. Because I feel, personally, that both Hector and by result, well, I should say that you and both by result Hector will be better serviced by more arms, eyes, and ears in his protection. As you grow, you'll have to splinter yourself more and more. Do you think that you'll be able to keep pace infinitely?
I have had no sign of decay such far, and should I will adapt. Before we continue to splinter the conversation further, I would like to verify once more, mainly for the benefit of Lorik, before we finish out this stage and may begin discussing the actual expedition.
Indeed, a wise callback.
You are prepared to accept the conditions of non-communication of the subject and the recognition that this is a sanctioned expedition and that future expeditions will have to be sanctioned thusly.
Before I give my answer, you somewhat evaded the question on the nature of Cassandra's domain. You very quickly changed the subject to the claw which Zoltan stole from you,
Yes.
but did not actually address the nature of her domain.
She has constructed her domain from many parts of him, most often small, but has recently shown large, as she understands my primary goal. She constructs her plane to defend her from me, to defend her from my sight, so that her machinations might continue. The only way for her to reliably do so is to defile her beloved and use him to make it. When she receives those parts, she spreads him thin, not so unrecognizable that I might be able to freely strike at him, but not unlike with yourselves. Make it so that I might not dismantle the defenses of the plane without harming him. Is that a sufficient answer?
Lork looks at the others, see if they have any objections.
Rifter doesn't have any.
No objections here.
Hoppy? Does the Hoff have anything? Also, side note, I'm probably going to need a break in like 2 minutes.
Or
No, I'm good.
And it's just Darius and Nort.
That explanation is sufficient for the time being, for my purposes.
He looks lastly at Darius.
Sufficient for me.
Then now
And
you
a
first.
question regarding your use of the term expedition in this case. When you say expedition, will we be barred from living our lives on our material plane? Or is expedition a looser sort of term?
In this specific context, this expedition will be the recovery of Cassandra and her child.
Yes, but you refer to further expeditions in the second part of the agreement.
If that is to involve a drastically longer sustained duration in the material plane, then that is a potential avenue of it, yes. Not required, but a possibility.
I ask again, will we be free to live our lives in the material plane?
And I will answer again. It is a possibility. Not unlike this, discussions will need to be had, ones that I do not believe would be well suited now, before we understand more of how each other's conditions have suited the current situation. Consider it a trial.
Then, as such, I cannot agree to the second condition until such time as we have had those discussions.
The second condition is purely one of understanding. There's no oath, there's no bound statement by the second. I speak it purely for your benefit, so that you do not feel maligned when such events do not occur. If you can be proven reliable and that it is a useful activity to perform for any number of reasons, then it would be an acceptable condition to have. But should it put my statement at risk, then it would be unacceptable. And as such, we must discover how things play out here, and perhaps over a few more. Can I get a pause for a bit?
Yep.
Feel free to talk amongst yourself.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna deafen.
Each timer is coming up.
Listen, I understand. Part of it is he's trying to
I'm
leverage.
here, so just
Oh,
if I can deafen a little bit longer if you want.
no, you don't need to.
Okay.
It's probably good that you hear this anyways. But the splinter, the way I was leading the splinter conversation to was essentially he wants to gain the faith of Andromache to be more independent by making his fundamental forbidden information that of his consort with him. By like the information he hides that is necessary to his downfall is that, so him spreading it is directly contrary to his own existence.
Okay, I got you. We're about to be at the part past the, negotiation where we can actually get into some of the meat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Is there anything else you would like to speak about right now before we get back into it?
Lork is on a rage timer. We have to beat the boss before he enrages and we lose the fight.
I see the renegade option. I see the renegade option. No.
I ask you that. All right, are we ready to continue?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sorry.
I ask you this question, Lork. Would you, on your squire or perhaps your nominus who aids you, one who is still young and untrained, would you give them their blade, or would you train them first, continue to train their aptitude, or would you simply hand them temperates and see how they do?
There is a matter of training, but that is an entirely different matter. We are not hatchlings untrained with wooden blades. We are not dogs yet to be housebroken. We are individuals with lives that are to be returned to, and there can be no agreement if there is no guarantee that we will be able to return to those lives.
There's an agreement that it will be possible to. And, at the risk of insult, I must ask that you consider, and he looks at Darius, how much of an experience did it change you when you fell for the trap of simply existing for longer? How do you compare your current life to those hundreds of thousands of others you lived? Does Chad know what I'm talking about when I say that?
Yeah, when I was in the space.
Yeah, with hate.
I can say without a doubt that the existence I live now, that my identity as Darius, the god of dreams, is more impactful and more important than any other life I've lived in those countless cycles of the soul. That I feel, even if my memory does not serve me for each individual life and only the symbols they've carved into it, even if that is all that remains of it within me, it's...
Then with that agreement...
I'm sorry, I need a moment.
Yeah, can I continue talking, or... Okay, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for it. So how about that penis game?
What?
You know, the ball game. Good old American sports talk. You talk about balls. I mean, the ball game.
No.
You don't talk about ball game?
No.
You don't think about sports ball with
No.
your friends? It's kind of cringe. It's not very American of you.
Sports is gay, bro.
Whoa. BBQ, do you like sports? Yeah, see, sports not gay.
Oh, no. I am not a monolith of the preferences of gay people.
Alright, who else here is gay and only gay?
I don't believe that. I think gay people are a hive mind. I think you speak for all of them, so sport's not gay. I stand by
Look,
it.
listen,
The Gaelder
Lae'zel-
brain.
Listen, Lae'zel said gay, not gay.
Yeah,
Um,
controlled by the Gaelder brain.
Whenever possible, Rifter would also like to speak up about this whole us not leaving thing.
All right, we can do that momentarily then. Now that he is
Yeah,
back.
there was-
Yeah.
Something. All right, I'm back. Something. Out of all the lives, this is the most
Yeah,
important.
and
Even
so-
if the
yeah.
even if they were inscribed, this is still to me more impactful and monumental fundamentally than any of those that I've lived.
I'm glad that you understand and agree. And so he looks back at Lorik. At the risk of insult, I believe you are but a chickling when it comes to the nature of such information and of such a long lifespan ahead of you. Have you ever spoken with the chicken? Have you ever used any of your power to attempt to discuss with those or others with shorter lives than your own? It is natural for each and every creature with a soul as it reaches through its life to believe that it has began to create an understanding. It may be different for different creatures, but the hound believes it has begun to piece itself together at a few 6 or 7 years of age. The cat only slightly shorter, the trees much longer. For yourself, it is not so different. You have lived enough of your life that you begin to feel a sense of control over it, and yet an elf in your situation would be doubtless near as useless as a babe. I do not treat you this out of malice or contempt or disappointment. I do it because I sincerely wish for this to succeed for you. The fact that Lorik hasn't been speaking, it makes me a little concerned.
You should be.
Okay, at least you're here. Okay.
Yes,
Mhm.
I am here.
So I'm allowed to be concerned for the right reasons.
Yes.
I think you're mistaken about just one thing, Andromache.
I am about many. Please.
I mean, in this specific circumstance, you say that each individual feels the grasp of control as they age. I don't disagree with this. It's fundamental to how creatures live, breathe, die. But I think whether or not you value their feeling of control over something is irrelevant to the conversation we're having now. Perhaps in that feeling of control we are. Perhaps to you, our understanding of this is that of a newborn babe, but the experience and understanding, the ability is what should be measured, not whether or not it could be there given that amount of time. If you have issues with our experience, with how we handle ourselves, then say it not as, oh, they are but as untrained chicks, but rather the reason. In the same way that you do not train somebody by saying you are untrained, you train them by telling them what it is they need to train.
A valid final criticism. I shall lay it bare then. At this time, to me, the instructions I have previously given out before today had seemed to be exceptionally straightforward and easy to follow. And yet, despite that, the party has wound up in 6 individual circumstances in which someone must have been pulled, an event be erased, a person be plucked, and the intent of their future changed forever because of an inability to follow through on it. I do not malign you for it. But if you are to ask in ways to point out, I say not because you are young, but because, not that it happens because you are young, that because you are young you have much room to grow in the matters of this secrecy.
Which
I
is
don't
something
think-
that is covered by the first condition.
At least for their souls, I believe it is, Andromache. For mine, it is different because of my nature, and perhaps it might be should their natures change, but as it stands now, they're not going to be nearly as much of a danger. I see little reason to put the same restrictions upon them that you might put on me.
Perhaps. So long as there is a benefit, I would be amenable to release under proper security and observation. Be it the slightest of even your own observation of the situation, to be aware of it, to occasionally search through it, you might return to the elements of your lives that you so enjoy.
Is that enough for you then, Lorik? And if it isn't, I sincerely ask you to speak up.
To simply return for the sake of returning would be improper, but to return if even the slightest of aid to my cause is one that I could be allowed to permit without violating my oath.
I would not return for the sake of returning. I would return for the sake of my duty to my people. Or my duty to this family.
How about this then, Lorik? I understand all of your desires, and I don't disagree that you should be able to go. Just out of duty, just out of what it is to continue your life, but... And he turns. You said even the slightest benefit to you would be enough, correct?
Once you have been proven, yes.
Then how about this? As an executor, he looks at Lorik, and potentially a highborn, you will have incredible political power over the landscape of the developing Perun Empire.
Yes.
You could develop resources towards standardizing and making Hectorum, or I should say Perun's, the Bridge of Perun now, a far more consistent source of use. Make the elevator less of a group who are desperate or ambitious looking for wealth, and more structured aid sent in. It would benefit him, or them, in that they, as he gestures towards Andromache, in that they gain more aid, and it would benefit both you and the people to make it less of a death trap and more of a source of either wealth or strength or other resources to help better develop a home for your people, more than just the fort is.
There are other towns, such as Arish Tarnos, where I come
Sure.
from.
But it's still... Dragonborn are still seen as their clan, and I understand clan is identity, but when it comes to other people and how they see you, they see the clan. And I feel like if you set up... I don't know where I'm going with this. He kind of chuckles to himself. At its core,
Regardless
Lorik,
of the specifics you make of this arrangement, my concern in the agreement would purely and only be of your animosity towards me and towards Hector.
I bear no animosity toward Hector. And I could be persuaded to not have animosity toward you if myself and them are allowed to return to our lives in the material plane.
Forgive me if I do not fully believe you on your first statement. I believe you have had far too much of a history to distrust them, to distrust dragons, as to give it up purely for these sakes. It may be so subtle that you do not realize it, but I believe it would be unwise to believe it gone.
Hector is neither the Emperor nor the Empress, and has no designs on Viamnuri. Thus, I see no reason to bear ill will toward him. After all, I bear no ill will toward Cassandra.
Which I struggle to believe fully as well, but we are in negotiation, and I am to accept it. I believe...
can, if you would like, I can be bound under the effect of a zone of truth. To show
I do
the
not
purity
believe
of
you
such
lie
teaching.
to me, Lorik. I believe you are unaware of your own belief.
Then am I incorrect in that Hector is not, in fact, the Immaculate Emperor?
You are not incorrect.
Am I incorrect that he has no designs against the Viamnuri?
You are correct. Regardless, there are more discussions that we might have relating to the Dalmarev or towards the future of this immediate expedition, should these terms be found amenable. A green orb shows up. Should you touch it, you will be bound purely to the first of the contracts, one of none's speech in the matters of this realm and of its inhabitant, as well as to the non-communication in any other form. Darius, before you leave, I would need to discuss with you, alone, to perform a similar, slightly stronger method for yourself.
He shallowly bows as normal. I understand.
I do not expect you to do it now. After all, you could spend weeks here before Cassandra would likely be to perish. But, nonetheless, I leave you to your choice unless you believe you have made it now. Would you like me to depart?
I personally see no need for further discussion on the, as you put it, first expedition.
Evan, had you said that Rifter wanted to?
Yeah, I was waiting.
Sorry.
I guess. It's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Rifter kind of pipes up. He says, "Oh, one moment. Yeah, mate. How you doing?" As he's gonna get a little bit closer, to make his point, and he just says, "Right. So I get that you want to keep us here. Perfectly understandable. Got to keep your ducks in a row. Gotta keep old head honcho nice, safe, and secure. And the best way to do that is to keep us here. Get it? Understood. But I have. You must understand that our group, to make a better world, to make the world that we want, we have too much power now to simply stand aside and give it up, right? I can walk into a room and kill any man that I want. I can't let this power go and let the world be as it is, let it run by a bunch of jackasses. Well, I can do that. But I am willing to negotiate because a winning strategy requires sacrifices. If I can get a few asks, a few tiny trinkets, a few mortal lives, a few moving of pieces here and there, trivial to someone as powerful as you, I would be willing to stay.
It sounds not dissimilar to a request that can be discussed for Lorik, albeit one much more amenable to me. It would not be
Exactly why I think
unreasonable.
you'd be more willing to come to terms. So I simply put that on the table. Thank you.
It can be discussed.
Rifter nods. And that is all he wanted to say.
I understand your desire is not simply to live in a world without tyrants, but to make one. But I ask you then, how many tyrants would you seek to stop? All simply in the Empire? Perhaps in your plane? Perhaps in those beyond it? What would be your goal? There are trillions more in trillions of the lands. You cannot simply mean to believe that you could always continue doing so, do you?
I am but one man, capable of only so much. But with every fiber of my being, the way I was brought up, the way I have been raised, the way I have become who I am, I would never be able to live with myself if I did not do the most I could for the most amount of people.
He looks at Zeus. I believe you understand better than anyone here the pure breadth of the universe that exists. I also believe you have the best connection with Rifter here, in being, as I understand it, similar to a brother for him. What do you make of the situation?
Well, I'm happy to follow my group in the decisions that they choose. I foresee us coming to some sort of agreement.
And what of Rifter's specific arrangements? Where do you think he would land?
I believe fully in my party. I've seen them do quite incredible things, and anywhere where
I'll say
they
out of
would,
character, he's asking
Yeah.
very specifically, like, you know, if Rifter's saying, hey, I want to pluck a few bad apples from Perun, right, just because, you know, a lot of people are eating shit on that, being somebody
Mhm.
who's traveled to, you know, a whole bunch of different realms and seen a bunch more because of your planeswalking,
Yeah.
do you have a different view on it being like, oh yeah, just the fact that we're one tiny slice of a pebble, right?
I'll slightly adjust it, but he's going to essentially be saying the same thing of, Rifter is one of the strongest individuals that I know. Yes, there is an infinite amount of things and bad individuals, and, well, even greater than individuals that exist, but I have seen this group do the impossible, and especially is true of Rifter.
Rifter will remember that.
He lastly looks at Schoenhoff. Do you have any requests that you would like to assure are not unacceptable before we continue?
To start off, how do you view me being able to leave on a personal level, aside from the party as a whole?
As long as you were to act with appropriate secrecy and continue to perform acts in some regard that were to aid in the cause, I would be permitted to do so.
And secondly, I will have to find the time to speak to Sultan once this is said and done.
He nods his head. Then if we are all in agreement, I will leave you to it. And the orb just grows slightly bigger and repositions closer to the group.
Well, shall we get this train moving? Kind of talking to the rest of the party.
I could use some time alone with the party, if that is not detrimental to the cause.
He gives a slight bow. Unless other objections, then I shall depart for the time being. He looks at each member of the party cursory, and then begins to depart. Now's the part where Lort gets to, shit and piss about the fact that he's not doing violence yet.
We're inching our way towards the best conditions for us, I feel.
It feels like mining a mountain with a toothpick.
Perhaps, but we've got a lot of toothpicks. And this mountain might be big, but it's not like we're gonna get tired anytime soon.
I can't perform my duty to my people with their shackles around my neck, and I cannot agree to their conditions if I'm not allowed to perform my duty to my people.
So then one of you has to give way in order for both of you to get your way.
Perhaps with some sort of ultimatum for decision making should we put in place. Sorry, I phrased that weird. Say that we find using a toothpick to go at this. We come across diamonds or something in this mountain, to continue the metaphor. Maybe we find some other methods of taking care of the issue.
It need not always be a toothpick, you're correct. We will be able to make headway. Similarly to here, I've got a good one. You don't have to mine away the whole mountain with a toothpick in order to get that mountain to move. You can mine under it and it can cave in.
Fair enough. Is there a certain point where we should consider that maybe the weight of the mountain is secure enough in itself that is not an option?
All right, this is getting more and more convoluted. Let's drop the mountain. What do you say?
Fair enough.
Dropping a mountain.
At what-
That's another way to move it.
True. Should we maybe put up a limit on how much we are going to negotiate? Say, past a certain point of non-agreement, we look into other options.
See, that's the thing. Even in our space, the space we are in right now, I think you misunderstand these negotiations. We are under duress. These are not negotiations. These are mercy. Whether or not we believe it to be so, all of the power, as of now, rests in their hands. If it was up to them, they could just put us away. We would have no say. They don't have to answer our questions. They don't have to speak to us. They have all the power in the world. The fact that they aren't, that they're listening, and that they're agreeing to terms, isn't a point of power on our end. We are powerless here, whether we like it or not. It is a point of good faith on theirs.
One thing I think Darius is also, unless you're intentionally withholding it from the party, which I don't think you would be, Darius being, you know, business savvy as well, is that, well, he is, well, they are undoubtedly, like, you know, more powerful or in, like, combat or in this circumstance or whatever. The fact that you are currently an autonomous agent and would be able to do things like that does give you a slight amount of power over the situation in your anonymity and in your being able to do specific things, right? Which is why it's not that you're more powerful, it's that you have a task that that they value, right? The reason they're agreeing to this isn't just that it's a mercy, but that it is
Not just that it's
still
good faith.
useful to them, right?
We still have, like, that is our power, but, like,
Right.
it's not that I'm not going to do something for you, because he can find somebody else to do it. He can pass on certain things. Like the degree of power we have isn't we'll look for other options. We don't have other options.
Right. I mean, to
We are
them,
still
it is
coerced.
only slightly better if Cassandra and Steinex were to be brought here than if, you know, Cassandra were to perish in this event. Right.
I'm not saying we go against the plan now. I'm saying after this quest is completed, after our mission, current expedition, as it was phrased, is done. I'm thinking more of post that.
Maybe. We'll see what we have to bargain with, but at its core, I think what we need to do right now is convince them that we aren't the babes that he thinks we are, because we have, to some extent, reinforced his opinion with how we have handled our transmission of the information back when we were still unaware of its severity to the full extent, which I do believe is still somewhat on him. Nonetheless,
It is a strength, however, sometimes to be underestimated.
perhaps. Maybe
Very
for
true.
you all, at least.
Very true.
I think you all have that luxury, and I think rightfully so, not to discount any of you. I intentionally want most of his attention when it comes to this deal making, most of the threat level to be focused on me.
Of course.
I like that as well.
You are the most businesslike of us. You are, in fact, a god.
If he overestimates me, as he should, he loses nothing for overestimating me.
But you gain.
But I gain, and more importantly, you gain. Like I said earlier in the negotiations, there's no reason for him to treat you all with the same degree of caution he treats me. He is not wrong in that I could potentially reach trillions of minds with the information and be a toppling factor in his plans. It is something that I theoretically could do. I know, at least I believe, I won't do that. I can't necessarily say how I might change in godhood, but I can rather firmly in my eyes believe that I will not. But I can make that even better for him by potentially using that as the hidden information that, when revealed, becomes a source of weakness on my part. The type of information that helped us take down Nidhogg. My status as a willing child. Or rather, a byproduct of willing. You know.
Yeah.
Chad out here trying to be like, look at this deal. I'm invincible against everyone but you. Isn't that such a steal?
So true.
Look at this deal.
Someone has
Isn't
to
it
know.
great?
Look at this. Somebody has to know about Hector before they can hurt me. What a steal.
Yeah, but it benefits both of us because it means that I physically cannot, or both either physically cannot or
Or
like
disincentivized.
disincentivized greatly from ever revealing that information. It's more of a limiter on my ability to reveal that information than anything Hector could ever place on me, mortal or immortal.
He's putting on the rock leeways.
Yeah.
Sure, if the Rock Lee rates were also giant ass shields.
So true.
Too true.
Literal, like, made of steel. It's also like a power play from a god perspective to basically tie yourself to some of the oldest things in existence.
I'm gonna feed my cat. Give me like 12 seconds.
Right. So we accept this deal, or iron out a few things, accept this deal, go out, come back, and
Renegotiate
things.
further things.
yes. And who's to say how negotiations might go?
Darius takes out his water skin, takes a sip, clears his throat a little bit. Looks like these babies, as he gestures towards his vocal cords, are going to have a lot of exercise.
You were wrong about one thing, Master. Negotiations weren't short.
Etiquette.
So what is the party's plan? I believe Lorik has some tension he needs to resolve with the rest of the party.
Wait, I'm actually slightly confused on that part. Like, I feel like the only tension Lorik has at the moment is with Andromache because Andromache's being a bitch-ass motherfucker.
Too true.
I mean, sure. The point stands that everyone else is willing to go along with it right now, and at the moment, Lorik is unconvinced. He is the one man in 12 Angry Men.
Yo.
He's the one man in 6 Angry Adventurers.
Damn, he's racist. It's over.
6 gay men. OMG, it's D&D, 6 gay men.
We're playing 6 GM edition.
I
Can you stop at the square?
Yep.
cannot bind myself and the fate of my people to something so far beyond us without a guarantee that they will keep their hands out of my people's fate. And frankly, they've given me no reason to trust that they will do that.
I think we do not necessarily need to trust that they do that, as much as trust that we will get ourselves back, with or without their agreement.
Right. Regardless of whether or not we trust them, this is our way out. Because I think at this point we either take this or you stay here.
Alright. But if the worst happens, please help make sure that my people aren't bound to this. Just because of a deal I had to make to return to them.
I will make it my responsibility. Well, I would if I would ever need to.
Thank you.
We'll make it through this. We always do.
All right.
We'll add another pelt to the pile, but not in the same way that we have in the past.
All right. Lork's going to tentatively reach out and touch the orb.
Lork
So reach out and
immediately
touch.
dies of testicular torsion.
Integrates into
God.
nothingness.
Joke's on you. That was his decoy balls.
Very true. These are decoy balls. You reach out, and you expect there to be at least some form of feeling, but it is a complete form of non-detection. You feel no different. Your hand simply goes straight through it. Zeus does the same, I presume?
Yeah. Oh,
The same result. You reach, and your hand simply moves straight through the green orb.
motherfucker lied to us. This is just a floating candle. What is this? Don't notice any tattoos on my arm. New scars on my arm or anything.
You look down in your dust, and then the rest of the party looks to see Looney Tunes. He has his eyes floating for a little bit. He looks down at his body that's gone, and it's like, well, that sucks. And then he falls. His eyes fall to the ground.
Mr. Dyer, I don't feel so good.
Oof.
Please continue. What about our other 3 members of the party?
It
I
is
got
safe
nothing.
to touch.
Was that supposed to be touching it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We all touch orb. Question.
I
I'm
would
pondering
so.
this orb.
Rifter is certainly pondering it. Is Rifter gonna touch it though, or is that simply what he's pondering? Is pondering touching? He's pondering
yeah.
about touching balls.
Real?
Fuck it. Everyone else has. I will touch the orb.
What about Mr. Darius?
Didn't he say that he would need to do a different one?
He did.
So he's not touching it then, right? Because he needs to do a different one, right?
I would say there would be room for interpretation that, you know, it would be both, but that is acceptable. We can do it that way.
I mean, to him, the way it worked, the way he thinks it is a lower level abjuration not functioning won't like make a higher level abjuration stronger. It's just going to be like
Sure.
putting on a
here's
weak
the thing.
rope.
Sure, that's
outside of
valid. That's fine. Congratulations, the party has unlocked bad ending A for Andromache. Woohoo!
Let's go.
Let's go. The party has all touched the orb, except for, you know, Darius. It is still up to you each to talk to each other or choose to invite Andromache back in. Or perform some other, as of yet, unpredicted by me activity.
I dare
summon
show.
and not avoid.
Well, I if at this point we bring them back in.
Yes.
I think so.
No point in delaying further.
Andy, you can come back.
He pulls the green orb around, touches it, it goes into his finger, and he, after a moment of processing it, he says, "Thank you." Moves over and hands Darius a small slate, which he holds out in his right arm.
Darius will take the slate. I've been thinking as well on how I might earn more of your trust further into godhood as he's sort of looking at the slate. Does it do anything as he's saying this? Just taking it, or does he?
As you take it, you're able to essentially just slows down a little bit and gives you a lot of time to just. It's not written in the actual language, but as you look at it, it's sort of, you think of the terms and conditions, and he's very specific about the kinds of effects that he's doing for pure and complete transparency with you. None of them seem or feel malicious or improper or impractical. They seem well developed and of proper circumstance for such a situation.
He had closed his eyes midway through saying it as he's kind of like focusing on it. He opens it up, his eyes up after he's finished processing it, and says, "And while I am still naive to all of the interworkings physically and spiritually of gods and their making, if I would be able to make your existence, this plane's existence, Hector's existence, fundamental to the information I must hide as a god, that it might earn more trust from you. That way I am disincentivized from ever sharing.
I hold my answer on such a topic. I would have to perform tests and assure that such information could not be reasonably divulged in a reverse manner."
All right. That's acceptable to me. Should it prove
safe, I have no intrinsic problem.
All right. That's enough for me.
Now, onto the matter at hand. First, given the description you've given and that I have been unable to go to her location and verify, I believe it is within 98% chance one of two options. The first and the more likely is that a great interplanar worm has noticed her realm in the abyss as a result of her performing a particularly taxing or unwelcoming activity, and she has allowed her guard down, which has now begun to devour her and the realm around it as a consequent result.
For the sake of clarity, do you refer to a worm or a worm?
A worm. And then he just continues talking.
Spelt in common tongue,
Yeah.
or at least our
A
planet's common tongue.
W-O.
Okay.
One not unlike the kin of Dendar. If it is such a situation, then barring Seath being unwilling to cooperate with you in absolute entirety, it should be little more than a pittance for you to be able to solve the problem. However, the less likely and far more dangerous option is that it is from the Order of the White Flame, who, from a similar result of her dropping her guard, may have reached forward and begun to claim parts of her.
Who are the Order of the White Flame?
They are not unlike yourself and your order, Lorik. They are a group of individuals who hold a great hatred for all things draconic. One of the many threats which I take great care not to alert.
I would assume they do not hail from our plane.
It is unlikely. There may be few among them, across their many members, who may have hailed from the plane of the Dalmarev, but it would be unlikely that any would hail from Harun, seeing as there would be little anti-draconic sentiment there beyond your own. If it were the case, and he reaches out into his pocket and pulls out a small bead that is glowing a gentle pink with a little bit of magenta on it, and holds it out to Schoenhoff. It is a marbly bead that swirls with a little bit of wind on the inside as it moves. Is Mr. Hoff here?
Yes.
Okay. What do you do?
Where is this from?
I have created it recently as a result of much of the manufacturing you can see around you. He's there to aid you in creating a bridge between yourself, using your own magics, and that of the... Fuck. God damn it, give me a second. I forgot the name. It's not the Immaterium, because that's the one in between. What's the fucking...
Ether?
No. The fucking secondary plane that a lot of spells from the
Oh,
material...
the ethereal plane.
Ethereal, that's the one. One that would aid you in forming a direct connection to the ethereal plane, which is where they tend to devour the souls of creatures.
Worm or the White Flame?
The white flame. They break them apart piece by piece, and sundering them to many parts and dismantling them to a painful death. Both match the description you have provided.
No.
And this will help combat that.
It will give you the means to fight them.
Are they at all related to... Darius, do you remember those below Korheim?
What about them?
The ones who spoke of Kivas.
Indeed.
Do you think they might be related, or...
Perhaps. I haven't received much communication from them recently, but... They seemed... What was their name again? They told me their name, I remember, JC.
Their name is what their name was. It was not that is the important part.
Yeah. I don't think they are related, though.
Alright.
While they hold that brief aside, Andromache continues speaking to Struenhoff. If they are there, much as they strike at the souls of others, they would continue to be able to do the same towards you should you end up interfering with their manner in any regard. Even within the ethereal plane, they are elusive and difficult to detect. If you require more time to prepare for such an encounter, I would gladly provide it. However, it will be a difficult journey simply getting within the ethereal plane with all of you in your current forms, and they will be striking upon you each. They would likely strike upon you each step you take before reaching it.
Is there anything else you can tell us about them?
I can tell you that they are one of the greater threats which I have to manage. I can tell you that they hold similar views to that of Lorik and his Delmarevs. I can tell you that they despise dragons and travel realms purging them, thus the likely reason why they would go after Cassandra.
Right.
I can tell you that they are charismatic and that they will likely attempt to convince you to let her die. If you do or not is up to you, but a Steinax would be better here.
I don't
I'm
believe her
curious.
dying is on the table for any of us.
I'm curious as to why it is you support a Steinax more than Cassandra. I'm not
He is
entirely aware of what's in it for you.
a Steinax is of Hector's blood.
And so bound to your purpose, I should say.
Indeed.
Well, regardless, if it comes to choosing between Cassandra and a Steinax, every memory in me from her screams to save him.
That is what it would seem. Turning back to Schoenhof, the last among them. Bleh. Bad word choice. No, get out of my head. Get out of my head. Last matter of it is that they have a leader who is, while not strong on great terms, is one that would not need to be underestimated. The rest may be not a pittance, but easily managed. But the strongest would be a challenge still for the each of you.
And are there any signs he's involved in this?
It is unlikely that he is there at the present, if it's them at all.
But if it is them and their operations are disrupted by us, he may check in on the disturbance.
The
See
scout,
why
How about
task is
the
being
scout
carried out.
prepares well.
How about this then? I see an opportunity laid out in front of us, a way to benefit us, to get what we want, to help you get what you want, and to resolve the issue with helping Steinax and Cassandra. You've said that this group is one of the, for lack of a better term,
Antagonists.
thorn in your side, an antagonist to you. Is there anything in particular that we might be able to use their willingness to convince us against them? Something you want from them that could assist you, some subversion of them.
Their non-existence.
For that matter, I think I may have something in mind that would make my return to the material plane useful for both of us.
My purpose is one that does not allow me to strike them down from their life, and it is also one that does not allow me to bring them here for such obvious reasons.
Aye.
Their cunning is of an extreme degree. It is as such that, while neither me nor my cores would do so, and I could not ask anyone to do so willingly, for I would, in most cases, be sending them to their own demise, I would have no qualms were you to do it yourself.
Aye, my thought is that in fulfilling my duty to my clan, I could well set some of my subordinates to the task of rooting them out as they would cults to any number of vile icons that find root within the Empire. Would that be amenable to securing my passage back home?
I would be surprised were they to have any interest in your empire. They are small, they are tight-knit, they are mobile. They are hunters.
But if we are vigilant against them, that is one fewer plane they can claim as refuge.
If there is any evidence that it could even be possible for them to do so, then that could be acceptable. However, I remain unconvinced that that would be the case.
We will discuss the matter of our return more upon the completion of this task.
He turns back to Darius. And per your plan, if I am to understand it correctly, rather than simply attaining the goal you set out for, if it is in fact them, then that would mean for you to continue the battle out longer, perhaps put them in more dire threat than you might need to complete your task, such that you might act as bait, lure them out, and attempt to smite more of them. And do I understand it correctly?
Indeed. To put stress on them where you could not yourself.
It is foolhardy, but should you believe it is possible, you are free to do so.
It is foolhardy should we prioritize it over our initial intention. My goal is a Stynax. If at any point I doubt that our ability will wane and we will be unable to aid a Stynax, and to a lesser degree Cassandra, then I will not. But I can give you, at bare minimum, that we will try, should it be them, and that should we have the resources to, we will stress them where you could not.
He manifests a small journal which he provides to you. It is essentially a series of dossiers on the 5 people who are the standard members in the leader. I can go over details with that, considering that it's a little later and I probably have a decent solution for it. We'll probably just do it next time.
We'll do it next time, yeah.
But the basic idea is think very much, kind of like Delmarov's, where it's like, 5 paladins / knights / fighter barbarian, that sort of idea.
They've got clan stars. I see.
He gets it. Except there's only one of them. Right? There's one group of 5. It's not unlike your own.
Wow.
It's just like if the Delmarev, if the executors didn't have branches, they were just executors, and that's it.
Wow, he gets it.
Literally the easiest dub of my life.
Real.
If they have another guy who's drifter though.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe we're potentially going to the dark fighting the dark party boss
The
fight.
Warriors of Darkness.
Yeah, shut the fuck up.
So yeah, 4 of the basic dudes are Knight Paladin ones. The big the big leader guy is a big boy. And one of them is a more elusive trickery one who sometimes uses magic, but more likely is just, Mr. Shadow Man.
Nobody can outshadow death.
Hopefully.
Nobody out pizzas the hut.
Nobody outpeats the hut. So true.
Would you like more specific details than that for now,
Nope,
Darius?
we can deal with that later. You can type them to me if you'd like, just as like him reading the dossier, but we don't need to go into it in session.
He looks to Lork. They will likely try to convince you either through lies or false truths to give up on this path of yours, and given your already strained nature of this relationship, I have my concerns.
Cassandra is one who is under my protection, and my oath is unbending. It's as simple as that.
Even on a simpler matter, do you believe yourself to be not... I do not expect you would become goaded and simply give up any sensibility, but do you believe yourself resilient to the idea that they might call you a traitor and for aiding in the protection of such dragons? They might call upon you as ones who have slain worms and have taken up oath against such things that you should be aiding them, not fighting them. Do you believe that you are fully impressed against such a situation?
I once thought that it would be necessary to give up my name, my title, everything that I was, to properly fulfill my duty. Them calling me a traitor is nothing.
I hope you are correct. Schönhoff, do you believe you require any assistance in understanding how to manifest it?
A brief explanation should suffice.
You are familiar with Arcane Gate, I believe?
Yes.
It would not be an unsimilar action to it. Simply channel it rather than upon yourself and upon it. Channel it between that pearl and her soul if it is available. If not, then there will be other situations in which we must discover, but
I
in that
assume the
happens.
gem is your soul?
It should be within her, unless I am mistaken.
It wasn't for a while, but we returned it to her.
Then yes, unless something has gone drastically wrong. If it is not there, then perhaps you can consider that a test. If it isn't there and you do know that it has been returned to her, it is more likely to be the former instance. If it is still present, then it is more likely to be the latter.
I'm still unsure of all of your natures. I know that Calcus, Bree, and you have your gems, soul, red, whatever they might physically be. It's unimportant now. Does a Stynax have one themselves?
They do.
Alright.
Theirs is more purer than the rest. Theirs is much more of them than a part of them, but it exists nonetheless. It is something that has grown over time from some of the earliest creations required tethering to keep a soul attached to an individual.
And in your eyes, what manner of being is a Stynax, the child of a god and one who has not ascended?
He shakes his head no to that. He is simply the child of two gods.
It was my understanding that Cassandra was not a god.
As she put it, she used to be a god, but has since lost claim to that divinity.
Right. So then is the Stynax themselves a god? Something that has yet to ascend?
My best attempt to categorize it would be that they are the innocent evocation, or perhaps the not so much God as much as the embodiment of an icon, as the icon of children, to be the very essence of both change and of that created by the godmother. He is perhaps the child. That would be my best categorization. But regardless, he is of his blood, and that is the most important.
Indeed. Well, assuming it is the latter option, is there anything else that you have to prepare us for?
He creates a blue hourglass and hands it to... We'll be a little spicy with it. He'll give that one to Zeus, and he'll say, if you believe it necessary, we can attempt to fast change Dire's adaptation back into its time. It may be difficult for him, and it may harm him, not in any way that is unreversible, but that is a harm that I would leave purely for you to bestow if you were to choose to bring him along. You need not make your choice now. Only when you are ready to depart must you choose if you are to bring him or not.
Zeus will take it without really saying anything and put it in one of his bags.
He turns to Lorik. So that they might not weaponize it against you, would you prefer to know more of the truth of your plan, or would you consider it unbelievable were I to tell you?
Because you ask that, I assume that their leader is also one born from that plane, or at least descended from those who are.
Not to their leader, but another is.
What would they try to use as information against me?
The very nature of what you believe makes the Delmerev Order the Delmerev Order.
The death of Deimos.
You believe that the act of doing so gave the Delmerev such strength that they chose to be gone from that place, yes?
Not exactly, as tradition holds. The Immaculate Emperor and the Chromatic Empress grew afeared of the Highborn's power, having slain a great worm and banished them and their followers from that world.
They're not so different from the truth as I had expected. He then still braces himself for a moment just to make sure that, he's saying it properly. They are not the only, although they are one of the more dangerous groups that despises dragons. There were more of all kinds in the past before the time we find ourselves in now. Unless I'm mistaken, there were once some in Perun, a long time ago. They were driven to extinction across most planes by this group, or perhaps their hereditors. The solace most hordes of dragons could find was by making realms where, much like here, the very act of communication is prevented, where the idea of a very active aggression against a dragon would be prevented, giving them sanctuary from those hunters. And it's in these areas where their arrogance grew to get the better of them. It's where they grew cruel and wicked, and all of those traits which you have grown to hate festered within them, long after Hector had gone to rest. So when your clan stood up and rebelled and took down that sleigh and broke that tyrant's hand, and broke its fate upon the rock it stood upon. Damn it, that's not what it says. I said upon twice. That very act of defiance, your freedom was so great that your people were no longer capable of existing within that realm. And so were banished from it. It was not luck or fate or the choice of a dragon. The very act that you could no longer exist there. I believe Cassandra has kept similar safeguards up, but apparently she had to change them for some reason that has left her vulnerable. Are there any other questions?
To avoid any nasty surprises, would the Visionary among their number be anyone I would know or be familiar with?
It would be exceptionally unlikely that he were from Clan Delmarov. Unless there are those amongst your order who... Give me just 2 seconds, make sure. Unless there were those among your order with lavender and white skin.
Unless they were before my time. Regardless.
At that point, if they are from that realm and they too have broken free, would you treat them as brother? Would you think any more conflict of it?
I would pity them for having let their entire life be ruled by hate, but that would not stay my blade.
He then looks to the rest of the party. What else then before your departure?
I have no further questions, concerns.
All seems rather standard to me. Got a name, got a person to stab. Same old.
Strinhoff? I'm
Nothing
just...
more there.
Am I allowed to ask that, like, when we have those moments of silence, the party tries to find something to talk about, or at least bring up and say, hey, we can be good about it? If you guys aren't thinking about something?
I was trying to type something up, that's why I was silent.
I just
Gotcha.
feel like as the primary speaker, I don't have the right to say that.
Yeah,
Okay, that one's valid. That one's valid.
Yeah, I have had a lot of talking time this session.
I mean, as long as we each say that we're good, right?
Right.
Or whoever's not talking says we're good.
And I'm more so just saying it feels a little awkward when I have to ask each person.
Yeah, I got you.
Gotcha.
And when you are free and ready to return, boom. Blue cylinder forms at the center area. that will return you to a neutral place between realms, one that is still decently slowed by the chronology of this realm.
And one where we can then access Cassandra's plane.
Indeed.
Let's go then.
Aye, we don't have much else to do.
Up to the party. Would you like to do like 10 more minutes, or would you like to stop there?
Let's cliffhanger it in the realm. I feel like
Okay.
I feel like that's like the big thing where
You
we
jump
go into the
into
realm, we see something, and then it cliffhangers.
You jump into neutral space. Right. There's just, a big empty plane of stone everywhere, right?
Mhm.
It's
You cast Demiplane.
it's a little difficult to, it's not even like casting demiplane, it just is a demiplane, there's a lot of them, believe it or not.
Yeah, I mean, you figure how many casters get up to 6th level spells?
A lot. The party for the first time feels like they might actually have real privacy, and
Or 8th level spells.
is ready, and whenever they are ready, could cast the bone work to attempt to get into Cassandra's realm.
Of course, this all had to be far more complicated than Andromache
Oh.
bad.
It may be for the better.
Perhaps. We still do have a unequivocal villain left on our plane that we can relax our minds with.
Ah,
I
Well, here's to hoping this act, should we be able to deal with whatever group it is that is, I don't know, harming isn't the right word, irritating Andromache, we can gain more faith, more leverage.
I'm not taking no for an answer from them.
Well, we won't have to. It's never going to be them saying no. It's going to be degrees of how much we can get. Remember the inane metaphor about the mountain and the toothpick.
Aye. I just hope they realize I would be willing to carve my way through all 9 of the hells to return home.
I'm sure
To
they're
return to
aware.
my people.
Is the orc aware that that might be an easier task?
Listen, it's about the sentiment more than the actual difficulty of it.
And while I want to say that I'll be there with you every step of the way, if you choose to, out of responsibility to my post, I don't think I can.
Woo!
In the same way you have your oath to your people, to your existence, and you will fight tooth and nail for that, I have a responsibility as a god, and
Aye.
at this point, to my people, and to the grand game of politic. And conflict with Andromache, even if we succeed, will
Put that in
cause...
jeopardy.
It won't just put it in jeopardy, Lorik, it'll make everything come crashing down. It's not you, it's me. But nonetheless, we're talking about hypotheticals on hypotheticals.
Aye, but in the event of those hypotheticals on hypotheticals, I don't ask that you necessarily stand with me against them, but that you don't stand against me.
I will do my best to not take a stance. And hey, should you fail, I'll still be able to visit you. It's not like he's gonna kill you.
Fair. Right. Hopefully, it's just the worm.
Well, we can say that, but I'm going to behave and treat it as if it is the worst case scenario.
It usually is.
Sure. It usually is. And even if it isn't, then we just get to have a happy, nice surprise of being an easier excursion.
The one
But
above
besides-
all just looks with a pog on his face, being like, "What? No way! Bad things will happen to the party more frequently than it being the easy option." What's
No way.
the fucking writing thing where it's like, you know, bad like luck can get people into problems, but it can't solve their problems for them. Otherwise, that's bad writing.
Mhm. Unless their power is that they're inanely lucky, like the heroes from DC.
Yeah, but then it's not. But then
Domino.
it's not luck.
Domino.
That's their power.
No, but it's luck though.
Yeah, but it's their power.
Shut the luck up.
Listen. All this remains. All that matters is that at the end of the day, you can be the fastest, strongest, and none of that means diddly dick to shit ass.
Yeah, I
I'm sure
agree.
that would have been very inspiring if I could have heard more than a third of that.
I mean, I think it was better that all we heard was
Yeah,
that means
it
diddly
was
dick to
much-
shit ass.
It was so funny that way.
I said you can be the smartest, strongest, best person. It means literally nothing.
So true.
We basically heard the exact
killing
same
myself.
thing.
My brother in
Thank you for
Christ,
your
you
unintentional mic-based
You
humor, Evan.
gotta tweak your settings, man.
I swear to God, I only have these. But yeah, I on the off chance of it fucking happening, I said you could be the smartest, strong, whatever, best person in the room. None of that matters to being lucky. Being lucky is the best stat.
By the 9, I'm tweaking.
By the 9, I'm tweaking. Yiddly yeet. Y'all ready to break the bone?
All
Yeah.
right, there he is. Snaps the bone.
It's
He snaps his arm in
even
half.
slower than the other already weak and feeble one, but eventually it manages to manifest. Rather than a rather extensive tunnel, it is simply a small ring of flesh that you can then clearly see the other side from.
It's a sphincter.
Wow.
Thank God we don't have to... Not a long trip.
I mean, I would prefer that it was, because that means that the barrier is larger. There's more distance to cross.
Fair.
You go through the general flesh of, well, just about
Where we could
everywhere. He's now a paler red, a very sickly one of muscle that is not receiving enough blood, one of decay. She herself is rather spindly. Much of the flesh that does exist is looking withered and of starvation, and many parts of her are simply see-through as they do not exist here. You can see that the entire area where she was once clutching at a chest where there was non-existence is currently just laid open to bare as she is very gently able to breathe, and you can see some of the spindles connecting the core crystal at her heart to other parts of her internal body, while the ones that are the smaller fractured souls around her head that form that tiara are, rather than being in unison with her as she moves and as they move together, are somewhat erratic and some lag behind. She is barely able to move, and when she tries to move a little bit of her chest to the side, the center soul crystal remains rooted and tethers her body to that location. She reaches out first to Darius, but then to Schoonhoff. She tries to reach over to, like, your head, but you're just slightly out of range right now.
I guess I'll lead in closer.
She puts her hand with her thumb on your temple and the rest of it just sort of cupping the rest of the side of your head, and you're able to start hearing her in your head. For the rest of people, you can see a little bit of blood coming out of the ear, but only barely. It is minimal. She is bestowing a few memories onto you. A few of them being of Hector from when they were much younger. And she implores about how you remind her a lot of him, and how she needs you to promise to keep a Steinek safe.
I promise, and that's why we're here.
Her face betrays some of the stoicism she's trying to hold.
Lork knows it's not going to do much, but he's going to give her a few lay on hands points to try and give her a little bit more time. He's going to dump like 30 lay on hands points into her.
It visually seems to do nothing.
Damn.
Hopefully, some small comfort. We will fix this.
She continues her conversation with Schoonhoff through the mind link. If you have to choose him. And
We know. We've already made that decision.
you're so much more like him than you realize. You are wise, but willing to change and just adaptive and reserved, yet take care of him.
We will. You have my word.
She lets go of her hand from your side and it just falls slumping on the floor, her left hand now resting on her thigh at the bottom of her sitting, and the right arm just resting upon the ground. You can see as there are the many spindles connecting to her soul crystal still very much within her chest, giving you clue as to the nature of the problem.
Well, crystal's still there, which means it's the worst option. Now all we have to do is find them and find a Steinex.
The question is, how do we even do that? Unless... No, it hasn't been long enough yet.
What was Lorik thinking?
Card.
So, Darius has, through his adventures, gained the ability to detect the presence of the flesh. And the flesh we now know to be is is Hector, right? Like, so he can detect the presence of, to some extent, the existence of Hector or something of Hector, correct?
That is correct. He gets it.
Can he focus and try and figure out where the strongest source of something of Hector around would be to try and locate a Steinex?
Absolutely. Don't have some Darius lot. Perception, please.
You got it. I got my 3 out of the way, so I've got my D4 is done, which means surely he coped as easily as he breathed. Ah, I didn't get my 3 out of the way.
It feels somewhat to the right.
It's too far, but I know a direction.
Aye, and given we know that he is the child of the god, mayhap some of my magics may be able to help once we get a little bit farther.
Maybe, but you heard what he said. As he's starting to move over, he looks down at Cassandra. We're getting him out of here. And starts moving over as starts moving as he's continuing to talk. Perhaps, but you heard about what they said about their nature, how they're probably closer to that of an icon than that of a god.
Yes, but I would wager they would still read as divine to the senses of a paladin.
Perhaps. Whatever source we can get. As he continues running east, right, whatever direction that is. He's constantly focusing on trying to feel the sources as he's running.
So Struenhoff, as you're there, given how you're able to compare how she was last time you saw versus the current time you saw, given the rate of progression, it was probably only 12 seconds since the party was last here.
Oh my god.
Oh my.
And you've probably been here for about, 15 seconds right now. So if they were putting those pieces together, they will have only probably done something here, 35 or 40 seconds ago.
Which means that they're probably still here.
Which means the timer is also very ticking based on what the party's doing, and that would be something that would be important for you to probably call out.
Did she tell me that it's only been 12 seconds?
She didn't, but given the rate of change that her body is undergoing, that is a general estimation that you have made. Either way, given how much it is consuming her and her body is continuing to disappear, right now, it is rapid.
Okay. He makes a point of letting the party know before we split off away from her.
Does Struenhoff remember? I feel like it may have just been one of the things we skimmed over, but I can just retroactively say it a little bit more. Andromache would have talked more specifically about it, about how, you use that orb that he gave you to, go to the ethereal plane as yourselves, because that's where they are.
Right.
Okay, I probably misunderstood then. So is there an ethereal plane for this plane?
There's an ethereal plane for every plane.
The ethereal plane just intersects reality.
Yeah. Basically,
Right,
basically, here's the universal structure of, the multiverse is there's individual core planes.
The ethereal plane is just a little bit to the left.
There are elemental planes that surround that. Hey, hold on, Lork. It's slightly different than in that, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
all of the core planes, which are ones that you might think of, the Nine Hells, or
The Abyss.
Elysium, or not the Abyss. Again, Abyss is different.
Oh.
You're picking
sure.
you're picking some of the exceptions, or Perun, or a lot of the places you might visit, right? From each of those, they have their own component planes that are things that are elemental to it. Some of the time, a lot of the time, there are ones that are completely similar between them. So each one has its own elemental plane of fire that often intersects with other elemental planes of fire in, weird geometry ways. But
Yeah.
some of them might have unique things where there are things that are only really fundamental to that plane and not really fundamental to others. Then,
Okay.
up, basically cloned on top of it, is a ethereal version of it that allows things to live there. Ones that don't have that don't allow creatures to have souls there, and creatures that don't have souls can't go there. In between all that, there are a bunch of bupkis planes, like demi-planes, which are most of the time ones that don't have the ethereal plane on top of it, but some of them do, allowing people to exist there. The magic tends to be very limited there because a lot of the times they won't have constructed elemental planes adjacent to them. And in between all that juice, or in between all of those bits of stew in the soup that surrounds it, is the abyss, which is all of the nothingness between all of it.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is I need to activate the orb.
Yes, if I'm allowed to ramble, yes, you activate the orb and you.
Before activating the orb, I'm going to cast see invisibility.
Very wise. Look at him.
Oh.
Look at him. I'm going to temporarily place more things right now. I'm going to do that since you'd be able to see them currently as well. There you go. Job's done. We can decide next session if Zeus brought Dire or not.
Am I free to walk around here?
Yes, but just keep in mind it is in current real time because this is still you. This is just you seeing into the ethereal plane.
No, I know. I'm doing it because I want to scout.
As you move around and you look at it, things immediately start to happen as the person who's there starts moving towards you. The rest of the party is able to observe that pretty much immediately. Cassandra stops having her body fall apart. It remains in the current state it is, which is a very drastic change from the rather rapid condition that it was previously undergoing.
What's going on?
There's someone here.
All right, can we go now, right?
And doing that, I'm going to activate the orb.
Okay, go ahead and give me a concentration real quick, and then you can cast it.
Which will benefit from Orb of Protection, so con save.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Alright, let me.
Ooh, if that is.
What is your current AC?
16.
Alright. You get slapped upside the head with a sword that. Why the fuck did the music stop?
You are also public rolling, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Oh, probably because Rainy Jazz Cafe is not the kind of mood we're going for. So we'll just skimp out on music right now since it's about to drop out. He slaps you upside the head with a broadsword that burns with a white flame, and as it goes through, everyone else is able to see as part of Schoenhoff's face just doesn't exist anymore. Like there's just a thin slash. It's not bleeding. It's not oozing. His face isn't falling apart. There's just a slice through him that is just completely transparent and see-through to the rest, to the muscle and bone inside. You take 27 damage.
Yes, that.
Which is, in fact, with that Constitution save, enough. And you are
I'm
able.
guessing that's not something I can shield.
You could certainly choose to use a shield if you wanted.
Well, I'm not going to
It's
because
reaction and non-concentration, right?
yeah, but if it's a magical sword from a different plane, I don't think shield is gonna save me.
The
Yeah, since
public
you got a
rolling
14 on the
also,
die.
yeah. But importantly, it is not enough damage to prevent you from casting the spell, and you are able to instantly you're able to do so to finish that connection, and the rest of the party is able to see as from Cassandra's chest this small connection, almost like a funnel, forms out of it and reaches out into the area in front and physically grabs Struenhof from it. And now your Struenhof's physically here, and it sort of just leaves its hand dangling there, waiting for other people to get close.
Yep, or Russian.
Yep. Going in.
Everybody
Gracias,
gets
Oh
yoink.
wait, my THP shield ate that. Never mind.
Oh, true.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
so you don't need
Hey.
so you the Constitution save was even more good. Fantastic. So you took what, 3 damage?
It was
Two.
27, right?
Yeah. So
Then
2
yeah,
actual
Two.
damage.
2
I
damage.
took 2.
Okay, yeah. So good. You didn't roll an at 1. Woohoo!
Wow.
Woohoo! Woohoo! And the party
Thank
begins to
you,
rush through.
inspiring leader.
We will figure out which it goes each turn because it is able to handle 2 people entering per turn. So the question is who will attempt to buff preactively and who will attempt to rush in. That will be something to temporarily discuss. We know that Schoenhof will be in the first batch, but as for the rest of it, it is up to the party to discuss.
Yep.
And we will figure that out for next time.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, hold on. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Because he hit me and I was then able to fully shift to the ethereal plane, can I take a different reaction other than what would have been shield?
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't end up using shield.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to clear it because
I assume you'd be asking about the retribution damage because that would probably not work here either, since that you got here afterwards.
Yeah, after the attack.
yeah, that's why I wanted to check.
Okay. You could still do a different reaction if you want. Plus, it's probably going to be your turn as one of the turns.
Full time.
Yeah, but we're about to end, so
Right.
it's fine.
All right. Then I think that's a good stopping point.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stab him.
So true. I definitely think that if it's 2 per turn, I definitely think that Rifter is 100% going to be one of the people. A, he's faster than us, so he's going to make it there first. And B, he's like, I feel like the guy that would just sprint immediately towards it.
Yeah, you can't
That's
even
a-
talk. Yeah, you can't even discuss talking about it. I will also assume that Zeus set up his communication barrier before they left.
Discord call, yeah.
And I'm
Of
pretty sure
course.
whether or not we brought Dyer is going to be entirely whether or not Hawkeye can make it next session.
Yep. Pretty much.
All right, guys. We only have 1 hour of comms.
All right,
No,
Vince.
actually,
Uh-huh.
I disagree. It's not going to be
Okay.
whether or not Hawkeye is here or not. We're not bringing him even if he is here. No.
Oh.
Why not? You're
Oh,
not going to
no.
use the bone hurting juice on him to get him up to speed?
Hell
No, I just don't want to play with him.
Also
Yeah.
very
He's a sneaky
valid.
little baby.
Genuinely
I agree.
valid. Yeah, I agree with that.
But if Rifter's going in first, Lork is probably gonna cast Bless on Darius, Rifter, and Zeus, while the others funnel in first, just to be
I'm
productive on
jumping
turn
in
1.
first because my friends.
Faster.
Also because I am so Rifter in game is so he has finally got an excuse to stab someone.
Me when I intended this to be the bulk of the session, and instead the 45 minutes of conversation continued to drag on, and I am happy with that nonetheless. But I really need to stop underestimating the amount of time. I just need to start
I mean, it's
doubling or tripling the amount of time I expect things to take.
Listen, Lork is eternally going to be pissed at Andromache.
Yes, but why?
You know damn well why.
He's very angry.
I really
He's very
don't.
he's very irrational. If we want to get sexist, he's very womanly.
Oh no. All I'm saying is, look at this guy.
Look at this
Yeah,
guy.
guy.
Definitely look at
Yeah,
this
yeah,
guy. That's
yeah.
all he did say. That's all he wanted to say.
Real.
Oh my
I feel so bad for you, Evan. Just put on push to talk, man.
The Mike humor. Oh my god.
I want to kill myself.
Just put it on
Only
push
Mike.
to talk.
Haha, don't kill yourself. You're too hot.
That's
Nya,
kind of
nya, nya.
within
Yeah,
day.
Nya, nya,
and
nya.
Day.
But then we might hear like, summon the electric goats. Or
I cast
Anyway.
gar, gar.
I cast Bestow Curse directly on Gay to have Rona for another week.
No.
This guy thinks I play Empire, Lamau.
Okay, then we just hear in the background, Bok. Bok.
Damn, he's
Boston
got me.
Bristol Orienteering Club, which has nothing to do with the battle in Lustria. Anyway.
you got the Marino Menounos flag.
Anyway, I'd like to thank you all. I'm glad that this wasn't the last session as I predicted when it was 2 to 3 sessions, but it is certainly airing close, and based on how the party feels about this situation and how they choose to proceed with Andromache going forward will inform a lot of things.
We'll get to level up to 21 after this.
Yeah.
Break the level cap. Let me get plus 10 in dexterity.
I mean, unironically, divine boons exist for a reason.
Mhm.
Not that they'll be very usable. At this point, I'm going to inform the party that many of the actions you are taking here are also going to be setting precedent for future actions now that you are on the oath with them.
On the path, yeah.
That, continuing to be negotiating means that it sets up as a sort of communal relationship. Being more agreeing sets it up as a more agreeable situation, right?
Mhm.
One that is conflict sets it up as a more restraintive situation, right? And so the actions you continue to take moving forward will start to set the precedent for what post game will look like.
Yeah, we're nice to him, and then we fucking kill him. I got you. We got this.
Well, look at this guy. He doesn't have the orbs.
So true.
Those were my
He doesn't know
decoy
anything.
balls.
Darius is making a divine power play, and if it works, it's gonna be great.
Lord he is not taking no for an answer here.
Anyway, thank you everyone for not coming out to the stream, but for listening in afterwards. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the stream real soon, and goodbye.
Peace.
Yes.
Piss.